look like you've had a bad day.
Hey, tell me about it.
Well, you came in here looking like crap, and you haven't said very much.
You didn't say that again.
Well, you came in here looking like crap, and you haven't said very much.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Underrated, a podcast where we talk about movies that are underrated, under the radar, or ones that have just passed most people by. I am your host, one of your co-hosts, Derek McDuff, and with me, as always, are Alan Torres.
Hey everybody, how's it going?
And Ariel Ortiz.
Hello.
And today we are joined by a special guest, the host of the Force 5 movie podcast, Jason Kleeberg. How's it going, Jason?
Good. How's everybody doing tonight?
Doing well. Thanks, man. So I was actually honored to be on Jason's podcast a couple months back. Now we had a lot of fun. His podcast, actually, they talk about top 5 movies of any particular category. So, you know, top 5 slasher films, top 5 underrated movies, which was one of the ones that kind of sparked me inviting him to come on and talk about this. The one we did was top 5 brief encounter movies, which we had a lot of fun with. But yeah, as I mentioned, I listened to your episode on top 5 underrated movies, and your number one was actually the movie we're talking about today, which is why I wanted to reach out to you and have you come on and talk about it, and that is 2014's They Came Together, which is a satirical, absurdist kind of rom-com farce. It stars Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler, directed by David Wain and written by Wain and Showalter. So yeah, this was, your number one pick. I really wanted to talk about a Wain, Showalter, Ian Black film for a while. Originally, I kind of wanted to talk about Wet Hot American Summer because it just got killed upon. The original reviews are brutal for that movie. Like, there's this whole, Roger Ebert released this very just dismissive review of it. But it's kind of grown a cult following over the years. So, we kind of talked about it, probably wouldn't fit. Then I kind of wanted to do The Baxter, but that movie's not even available anywhere. You can't even rent it or buy the DVD. So then I kind of was leaning towards this. And once I saw that you also thought it was underrated, I was like, okay, that's it. We're finally doing it. But I want to throw it to you, Jason. Tell me why this was your number one underrated film.
Okay, a couple of reasons here. And first off, I want to start by saying that I see a ton of negative reviews for this movie. And a lot of the negative reviews circle around it's a parody of romantic comedies. And it tries to subvert the tropes, but then falls back into the tropes. And any review that says it's a parody of a romantic comedy loses all validity to me, because this is not a parody movie. This is a spoof movie. In the same vein as Scary Movie is a spoof movie. And you wouldn't walk out of Scary Movie being mad because you weren't scared. And I feel like that's the same way you have to take They Came Together. It's a spoof movie in the same way as Airplane. And the cast here is amazing. That's number one on my list. Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler, who do amazing physical comedy. They do some really great back and forth dialogue in this movie. All kinds of small funny roles. As you watch this movie, and I hadn't seen it for probably 3 years, and I'm watching it again for this show. It's every scene has somebody recognizable. When you have Michael Shannon in a role on screen for 30 seconds, that's amazing. But they have cameos from all kinds of people. John Stamos pops up in the middle for 25 seconds on screen. Jeffrey Dean Morgan. There's so many really great cast members just on the side. Not to mention all the people in there. Bill Hader. Who else? Ed Helms. Michael Ian Black, like you mentioned. There's so many good ones. And it's funny. It's so funny. There's funny wordplay. There's funny physical comedy. But I think to enjoy They Came Together, you really have to go in with the right mindset. And I just laugh throughout. Now, my wife does not like it as much as I do. She's a big romantic comedy fan. And she just, I guess we have different comedy styles. She just doesn't get it. And there are some things in this movie that I see people finding grating. Like the scene at the bar when they just keep repeating the same lines over and over. That stuff gets me. I just think it's so funny.
That is one of my favorite scenes right there.
Say that again.
It's so good. It's so good. And there's every scene, there's not a wasted scene where there isn't a joke. And every time I watch it, I just pick up so much. And I'll give you an example. In the very first scene, it's bookended by a couple's dinner where they are telling their story in a very romantic comedy kind of way. And there's this very split second moment where they're starting to cut to New York City, and Paul Rudd picks up his wine glass and he puts his whole mouth around the wine glass, but you only
my
see
God,
it
yes.
like, yeah, you noticed it. A lot of people don't notice it because it's on the side of the frame. It's for a split second. Like you don't even see his mouth wrap around the whole thing, but it's like, what is happening? And it's one of those moments where you rewind to make sure you weren't going crazy. And there's a bunch of moments in the movie like that. And I think it's one of the funniest movies from the tens, and it does not get the respect it deserves.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Alan and Ariel, I know me and Jason are both big fans of it, and I've been wanting to talk about it for a while, but this was the first time either you guys have seen it. So Alan, I know that you can really go one of two ways with comedies, but what did you think of this one?
Oh man, like I absolutely loved it. Like I was really nervous when I saw the poster because I was like, oh no, because I really don't like comedy in general. Like I'm very picky, and I think this movie made me realize like I like absurdist comedy. Like it just has to be like just bonkers and silly kind of thing. And yeah, like the one of the big things that made me go, I think this is what I think it is that same thing where you said where Paul Rudd just puts his whole mouth over the wine glass, where I was just like, wait a minute. And then my girlfriend kind of heard me watching it in the other room, and she was like, "Are you watching like a rom-com or something?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was like, "Do you want to come watch it with me?" And then we saw that part, and we're like, "Okay, we're in it. We're in for the ride." And I absolutely loved it. Like, I completely agree. I think this is one of the best like comedies of the tens, and I think it's super underrated. I never heard of it before. Just a parade of like amazing comedic actors in it. Like every other scene is absolutely like every scene in general is hilarious. And like you said, it's a spoof movie. You know, it's like Scary Movie or Airplane, or you know, I also recommend everybody go check out Angie Tribeca. It's the same style of humor, which that show's hilarious as well. But oh no, I loved it. Like just every little thing about it, like and the comedic timing for certain jokes was absolutely incredible. Like I was just cracking up, like especially whenever like Paul Rudd, you know, there's a scene where like maybe somebody says something a little like off, and you're just like, wait, what do you mean by, like, you would expect someone to be like, what do you mean by that? And he's just like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it just completely catches you off guard. And I just love stuff like that, like just absolute absurdity. And I did also go right after I finished the movie, I was like super shocked. I was like, dude, how is this not more well known? So I looked up the reviews, and just like you were saying, people, I think just some people just don't get it. Like like they just, you know, just reading some of the reviews, like someone was like, how is this a romantic comedy? Like somebody, one of my favorite reviews was somebody was saying, I don't understand how, you know, they're trying to explain the characters' origins, they're trying to go through their character development, and then all of a sudden they do like he's at a bar and they just keep saying the same thing over and over and over again. And I was like, oh man, you really didn't get it. Like the bar scene's probably one of my favorite scenes of the whole movie. I was like, please don't stop. I was like, I hope this is like 20 minutes long because I'll still be laughing my ass off. But yeah, just so many reviews where somebody was like, I tried to put it on, you know, me and my boyfriend were trying to have like a nice night in, have some wine after dinner, and oh my God, I am so offended. And da-da-da. And I was like, this is, I think that added more for it to me too. Just reading reviews of people just not understanding it and just hating on it, where I'm just like, oh my God, man. I hope like, you know, David Wain and like everyone else just, I hope when they see those types of reviews, I hope that makes them laugh as well. Like I feel like in a way they're also trying to be like, yes, we got some people, and then some people don't get it, and they love it for it. Because I remember David Wain and Michael Ian Black, and then this other dude. I don't know. I don't think he was in the movie. They did like this comedy troupe called like Stella.
Oh yeah, Showalter. Yeah, he
Yeah.
would. Yeah,
There you go. Yeah,
Wrote
and
it.
like So that's him. Okay, I couldn't remember his name. So all right, cool. Yeah, they were all a part of it, and like they had that same style of humor. So like, I think it's one of those things where like, I think if some people didn't know where all the writers and actors were from originally, that's another thing they might not understand why it's the way it is. But oh man, I totally dug it so much. Like I kind of actually want to rewatch it just to catch even more stuff. Like my girlfriend thing that she's kind of like not really big into rom-coms, but she absolutely loved it too. Like we were absolutely cracking up and just like yelling at the screen. It was so funny. But yeah, I completely agree. Super underrated and probably one of the best comedies of the 2010s. But Ariel, I want to hear what you think.
For it's a very complicated movie in my opinion. I do definitely get what they're coming from, of course. Like right when I knew coming in, like, it was like kind of like a spoof of um of rom com and all that, and then but it wasn't until I saw Michael Ian Black walk in that it finally like, oh yeah, this is the people, this is the Wet Hot American Summer um group essentially, and that's what I'm gonna be in for. And I kind of felt the same way that I did with Hot American Summer, where it's just it's like Alan, like you say, like you get kind of like cringe, you kind of feel
Oh,
like cringes for
like a moment of embarrassment.
normal, yeah, for
Hmm.
normal rom-coms. I just, it would not go away with this one for me. I found funny and stuff like that, but then like other things, like I just found like, oh my gosh, like I just, like it was just, it came to the point where it was too much. Unfortunately for me, the bar scene, like, it got too annoying for me. Like I had to like kind of like, okay, all right, how many times, like, like I understand it's like, um and but then it also like equated it to like essentially like this is what the room should have been. Like it was good in that way, where like, it's just this absurdity. I think like the scene when he first sees his her sister, that part, just like I was like, this is a better version of the room, like, and like, I guess you could say, but yeah, for me, like I'm not one for this type of humor. For mostly, I like Stella, but I feel Stella was like a little bit of a step back than this one. Um, and this one is definitely along the lines of what Hot American Summer from this group, because I know this group also made Role Models, which in my opinion is also another underrated film. And I like Role Models a lot. Um, and so yeah, for me, I enjoyed it. I found it funny. It just kept getting wackier and wackier and wackier, but there was parts where I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so like, like, I don't like it's like it's intellectual to come up with these ideas, but then they're also dumb ideas, like, like, or they're dumb kind of like,
It's smart dumb comedy.
they're smart dumb, yeah, smart dumb comedy, yeah, yeah. And yeah, of course, like Christopher Maloney essentially was the same kind of character that he was in What Hot American Summer, where it was just like this very weird, like, just weird shit happens to him and stuff like that, like with the whole, um, shitting in his suit and stuff.
So much.
I did get a kick out of like, when the kind of like couple that knew Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler's characters, and the ones that invited them to the party together. Um, that like their whole scene with like them looking at each other, like kind of making fun of, yeah, like couples know what they're saying, and then like the words, but then he accidentally like knocks the words and he has to like scoop the words off. I really enjoyed like those parts and stuff like that, but then there was also other parts where it was just like getting too much. Like it was just like kind of like, yeah, like just stop, I'm done, like I've been kicked on the floor kind of thing, with this. And I took a break watching it too because of that reason, and came back to it, and yeah, just to try to like, just to kind of like try to like revitalize my interest in it. And I think at the end it kind of was starting to lose me, until the end. the very end with Jeffrey D. Morgan jumping in, and then of course the Michael Shannon, and
Interesting.
that whole
Yeah.
part that was amazing. Yeah, with the
With
sword.
the sword and he gets shot in the face.
Oh my god, when he got shot in the face, I was like shocked. I was cracking up so hard. But
Yeah,
Because it just
yeah.
happens
So
in the
there was
background
definitely,
too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I mean, it gave me like laugh out loud moments. Yeah, this movie definitely gave me laugh out loud moments. Like, but for the most part, like my cringe of it was kind of getting in the way. Um, but definitely, like if you're okay with it, I'm very sensitive when it comes to cringe. When I get cringy, I just can't help it. Like for example, with the new Hawkeye series, like when with Rogers the musical, I just was like, I that secondhand embarrassment. I'm like, no, I just can't. Like like had to step away. Like was getting all antsy and stuff like that. So yeah, but that's just me. I'm just very sensitive when it comes to awkward situations, and feel I'm very empathetic with characters.
I think I know what you mean because, like, for me, 80% of the comedies that I don't like are pretty much that. I think I get too empathetic for the characters, and there's too many situations where I start getting like secondhand embarrassment, where I'm like, I don't want to watch this anymore. Like, I'd rather watch like I'm a big horror fan, so I'd rather watch like just people getting fucking gored and destroyed on screen rather than like a scene that me and Ariel did a you've never seen episode about Elf, and there were scenes in that movie, even though it's cute, Will Ferrell's character is just a little too much, and I actually had to stop watching that because I was like, oh, this is too much for me. I'm cringing and I'm kind of embarrassed. But I think with this type of comedy, like type of film, I think you have to also be in the joke with the actors and everyone on the project. I feel like there's this sense of like everyone's like it felt like an SNL skit, like a really long, SNL skit. And I feel more like I'm like we're all in the joke together. Where I'm like, okay, we all get this is absurd. We all get that this is like stupid and funny. So I feel like I don't feel that as much with this type of comedy. I think that's where we differ. But
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah,
yeah.
what about you?
No, but like Alan, that it's very hard for me to get jokes, especially with like nowadays jokes. Like you've had these jokes with the bro that I'm like, what are you guys talking about? I don't get it. I don't get it. Just stop, like and stuff like that. Yeah. So there's definitely
It's a lot of stupid humor. It's a lot of
it's
dumbass
just
humor, and
I
I
mean,
think I
I will
like
give it
that.
credit that it definitely fits in this day and age kind of like humor, and I wonder if it gets released now, like with it feels like my brother is 10 years younger than me, so he's Gen Z. I feel like he would get the humor a lot. So yeah.
It's the whole Wet Hot American Summer and They Came Together comedy is definitely an acquired taste. I know that I've shown Wet Hot American Summer, which I love to a lot of people. And the scene in that movie that you know somebody's on board or they're not is when they go into town. Like, oh, we're going into town and we're going to the store, and then they they get high on heroin in these hallways of these like crack houses,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
just and then they come back to the camp and they're just like normal, like, oh, what a great day in town. And I think that is the breaking point for that moment. And for this one, I think that breaking point comes pretty far into the film when they go to see Amy Poehler's parents in a scene that like I
Oh
just
my
think
god,
it's
I love
hilarious,
that
but my
scene.
wife is like, I'm out when it's revealed like what her parents really are. But I love that scene. I thought it was just so absurd, and it's those jokes that will definitely offend people. But I thought they were just a riot for me.
But yeah, I think with comedy, since they are so subjective, something that can really hit and resonate so much with me, like I can be just dying of laughter, is not going to hit with you, Ariel. And it's like I've seen like Norm Macdonald, for example, use this kind of a litmus test. It's like, oh, do you think this guy is funny? And if you do, then we're gonna like our comedy kind of genes will align. And this is that same kind of thing where it is just that absurdist, just ridiculousness, and it just keeps getting weirder and just like it snowballs on itself. And I really appreciate that. I really just kind of that clicks for me. And I think that is why this movie is so divisive, is because you've got people who think this is the funniest thing in the world, but people who don't like that absurdity are just gonna like hate this. And so I get that why it didn't really click with people. It barely made any money at the box office, like under $1 million, even though it was only made for like 3 million. And I mean, I know it was also kind of just like it was kind of just on like the like at Sundance, and it got released on iTunes like same day. But yeah, it's even years after the fact, like people didn't see it. I only ever saw it because it was on a cruise ship, and like I was like just flipping channels, and I was like, oh, Paul Rudd, like Amy Poehler, I'm gonna watch a little bit of this. And I was just dying of laughter because we caught it 10 minutes in. It was like right at the scene where Robin Colby Smulders is cheating on him, and I was just like, me and my brothers were watching, and we just started like, oh my god, what is this? And then that leads right into the bar scene, so I was like, what? Because I remember seeing the poster, and I think I had the same reaction that a lot of people did when they saw the poster, just thinking it is just kind of another rom-com, because the poster, you wouldn't know other than the fact that the title is like, they're like, okay, that's like very, very suggestive for just like a regular rom-com title. But yeah, so I don't think people knew what they were getting, and so people went in either not wanting to see it because they were thinking it was just an average rom-com, or when they went in expecting that and they got just Airplane, but with a rom-com version of it instead, it was not what they were expecting, so they didn't like it. But I think that, like Airplane, like you'd mentioned, Jason, what really sells this movie is that it's all these like really good actors. Like they can like give a they're not like wink wink nudging like look at how ridiculous it is. They're playing it completely straight. Like they might be going a little bit over the top, but like Leslie Nielsen is in Airplane, very stoic, just kind of like delivering every line just as a matter of fact. Like Paul Rudd and Amy Poehler kill it. I think it's the same thing with A Couple at Dinner. You've got Ellie Kemper and Bill Hader just kind of saying these ridiculous things with an absolute straight face, and these things are happening, like Michael Shannon charging with the sword and all, and just it builds on this ridiculousness. But because the actors are all just kind of like playing it so straight, and Paul Rudd never cracks or like laughs or smiles when he keeps saying, "Tell me about it," and he just keeps repeating. And like that scene, I know you hated it, Ariel, but I was dying. Like the longer it went, the funnier it was, because it was just like, oh, is it still going to go? Is it still going to go? Yes, it is. And I just kept laughing, waiting for it to end. And then it just kept going and going and going. And you guys said a lot of the things, like in a lot of the scenes, that I just really thought was great about this. I think this also why it's kind of like we don't do a lot of comedies on this, because they are so subjective, and it's a lot harder to point to something being good definitively in a comedy than it is in like a drama or a genre film. But for me, this one really hits. I think it's not only underrated because nobody really gives it the respect it deserves, but it's also just very under the radar. Nobody really knows about this. I'm really glad it's on Netflix, and I hope that maybe that gets it some more eyes on it. But yeah, I love this movie. It's got to be one of the ones I throw in my rotation, especially now. I like that it's also just like, it's like an hour and 20 minutes, so you can just sit down and just watch whatever.
Yeah, I can understand why it's underrated. Paul Rudd around that time was doing a lot of the same type of roles with My Idiot Brother and Admission and Dinner for Schmucks and Role Models, and then he comes into this essentially playing the same character, but it's an absurdist comedy where he's pulling hamburgers out of little kids' ears.
I love that.
And yeah, I mean, I was dying at that moment too. And my wife was looking at me like I grew a third head. There's moments that are so absurd. And if you're not in the mood for that kind of movie, if you're not in the mood, if you don't laugh when you watch stuff like Airplane or Scary Movie, you're not going to like this. But if you are into that stuff, This is a gold mine of jokes. And I don't know if you noticed it, but this is the first time that I noticed it. In the end credits, New York is credited as a character, which I think
Oh
is
my
just
god,
hilarious.
it's so good.
That's awesome.
That's so good. There's
I
so
think
much like little stuff like that. Oh my god.
I looked into the. I was just gonna say, I when I was on IMDb, I was looking at the trivia, and apparently, like every kind of like marketing thing, the tagline was something like, a romantic story between two people or something like that, including New York. You can say New York is a character as well, or something like that. And they included it on the website and the poster, and I absolutely love that they went as far as adding it to the marketing as well. But sorry, go ahead, Ariel.
I don't know. Like I said, it for me, yeah. Like I was laughing at it. I do enjoy Airplane. I do enjoy scary movie and stuff like that. But for me, for this movie, for just some reason, I'm just like I'm laughing, but I'm just like shaking my head, like oh my gosh. I'm like that's how I was throughout this whole movie, like just like laughing and like what the fuck is happening? Like what is happening?
There's a
Like
lot of
that.
nonsense.
I'm like
Yeah.
laughing.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
nonsense.
like I'm laughing, but I'm just like, what is going on? Like, yeah, that's how my whole
Not every joke hits too.
not every joke hit, but I mean, I laughed, but I'm just like similar how I was with what on American Summer. I'm just like, what is happening? Why is this happening? Why is it happening? Yeah, yeah. But
Well, something that I thought was interesting that you kind of brought up, Ariel, was role models, because that's the one film like David Wain, Michael Showalter, Michael Ian Black film that has actually been a success critically and financially, and that's the only one that it like isn't just absurdist. Like it's a comedy, and it's a pretty broad comedy, but it's not. It feels like real life to a degree. It doesn't feel like this absurd, just like mishmash, like just not mishmash, but just absurd, just kind of like it's not real life at all. This is just very much just like a movie. Role models feels just that's the one a lot of people have seen, and that's the one that has gotten really good reviews, and it's the only one I think that was made any real money at the box office. And I think that that there's a big reason for that. It's because these absurdist films are very like it's a niche, whatever how you pronounce it, thing. And people who love it absolutely love it, but it's not for everyone.
Ironically enough, I did not like role models,
There
but I
you go.
love this movie. Yeah, like it's. I feel like I'm in that niche department where like I'll enjoy something like they came together more, but like a standard, typical comedy like role models or like old school or something like that. I'm like I don't really care for, or like super bad. I'm not a big fan of. But yeah, stuff like this, I feel like it is a very niche kind of area where, yeah, I think it's like catered to specific people, I guess, in a way.
Well, 3 out of 4 people on the podcast liking it is a pretty good ratio, I think.
I
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it. I
that's
just
that's
like
pretty good.
I like it, but I watch it through my fingers. The kind of thing. That's my.
You know what comedy I had that same reaction to, where I was like, this is funny, but it's making me because I didn't get cringy at all from this. Like I was just like laughing my ass off. But what comedy made me cringe a lot, even though I did like it, was Dinner for Schmucks. Did you guys ever see that movie?
Yeah,
Nah,
I've seen it.
Yes,
I
I've
don't
seen
remember
Dinner
a
for
thing about
Schmucks.
it.
I
I
think I saw the
just like
commercial
for
and I was
Dinners
like,
for Schmucks. Yeah, for Dinners for Schmucks, like the beginning caused me to have the same feeling like this movie did, but then like I don't know, like like as the movie progresses, it like I'm like it loosens up a bit more, and I guess like it allows you to get used to the strange, so that by the end you kind of like enjoy it more.
I'm gonna not gonna lie, I never got used to it because it's just like all the characters are just so like cringe. They're just cringe inducing, just like completely unself-aware, and just like I don't know. Like it was funny, don't get me wrong. But that I had that exact reaction, which is what made me think of it that you're describing here, Errol, where it's just like, wow, this is a very funny movie, but God, it's hard to watch. I thought Steve Carell and Paul Rudd and everyone else who was in it was really good, but yeah. But speaking of a lot of people being in it, like we kind of mentioned at the beginning, like how many stars are in like They Came Together, because I think, and it's just like you even said, like, Adam Scott shows up in a scene. You have just like Randall Park is in there just kind of in the background. Like, this is before he was really famous, but people still kind of knew him. I think, it really speaks to like how much clout these guys have in the comedic world, that all of these guys are like, yeah, I'll show up and just have a glorified cameo. This movie is hilarious.
Yeah, Randall Park and Tiana Paris, who plays
Yes.
Wanda in this. They're both in WandaVision.
Yeah, she plays what's her name? Not Wanda, Monica Rambeau.
But in
Oh, I
this
knew
movie,
I
she plays
recognized
Wanda.
Oh right, yeah.
her.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
then
so a couple WandaVision stars before they were in WandaVision.
Paul Rudd does a little bit of magic before Ant-Man too.
Yeah.
He pulls the
Yep,
cheeseburger
and Colby
out.
Smulders as well, as she's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yep. Also, in that scene, they actually, like, even though it's very cringy, and I think on purpose, like, the way he describes Pokemon is accurate. Like, the whole Smeargle Butterfree thing, I'm like, yeah, that actually checks out.
Oh, I love that scene. That scene had me cracking up, especially since I work with like Pokemon cards and sports cards. So I was like, oh, I love that. Yeah, I definitely, I kind of just dig little things like that, like small stuff like that, where like they just describe something. Like I wonder if like somebody on the writing crew was just like, I'm just gonna throw this in because like I feel like it's one of those things where they're probably writing the movie and they're like playing Pokemon or something on the side, or they just know something and they're like, I'm gonna throw that in because why not? And then just throw it in there.
I heard that the bookends were added later, which I searched for the original script and couldn't find it, but I'd be interested in reading the original script because I don't think that those bookends were in there. And to me, they had fun of some of the funniest parts.
Yeah, I would be really interested to check out the script because I know, like, with these guys being like an improv troupe, I want, and just this being just so just off the wall with the comedy. Like, I wonder how much the movie was improvised and how much of it was there originally.
So too, I love the gags, like especially the coffee shop gag where she's like, "Oh, I'm just impressed at like certain gags like that where they just have so much to memorize. We're just like, Amy Poehler's character is like, well, I want my muffin like this, but if they don't have it, I want da 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 da. Like she just goes off on a tangent, and then they're like, at the end of it, they're like, oh, it's a number 3 and it's on the menu. I like stuff like that. I'm always impressed by where like it's just so long. Where I'm just like, damn, like I give so much props to like actors that like have just a long ass stupid thing to remember just for like that last punchline of being like, "Can I get a number 3?" And it's right there on the menu. I love little things like that, like or long things like that, I guess. But I'm always very impressed by that.
Yeah,
Also
absolutely.
appreciate the fact that this was rated R because I think it would have been a lot less funny if it was not rated R. And they definitely went there with the language in parts, and that makes it's like Larry David says. And I don't know, am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Oh, fuck yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, it's like Larry David says, "Add a fuck, double your laughs." When Ellie Kempers tries to get up during dinner, and she's like, "Sit your fucking ass down, Karen." Just like crack me up.
Exactly. That's why we have the explicit tag on this podcast, so we can actually make people laugh.
Oh no, yeah, there's definitely like some deliveries from like Paul Rudd with a fuck here and fuck there that was like that added to the comedy for sure. Like I don't know, yeah, it just like made it because he there was times where he like integrated it into like so like just normal like conversation and it hit like for some reason I yeah.
We didn't mention it yet, but the exchange where where he's like, "I'm sorry," and she says, "I thought you were Joel," and he says, "No, Joel's my middle name. Sorry is your first name? No, Billy's my first name. Your name's Billy Joel? Oh yeah." Like he never thought of it.
Yeah.
I was in like a Billy Joel song or something like mentioned later on, and then I like how they just were like, no, they're like, we're just gonna throw that joke out there, and there it is. Like I was kind of looking out for a Billy Joel song. I was like, they're gonna throw it in, and they never did. Which I'm like, kind of give you props for that because that seems like it would have fit, but at the same time, kind of glad they didn't. But one of my favorite things is scenes where they just get so extra for no reason. Like when Amy Poehler and Paul Rudd, they come home after the date, and Amy Poehler's like, "Oh yeah, my son and my sister are out or whatever," and they start making out or whatever, and like they're trying to make that really like really sexy, passionate like make out or whatever, and there's just all these different like shelves, and like Amy Poehler just grabs like each one and fucking flings it like every single time, like just to be like, oh my god, we're so passionate. Like they'll knock vases down. I think like Paul Rudd even just grabs a lamp and like throws it at the wall. Like it's just, I don't know, like stuff like that actually like really cracks me up. But that exaggeratedness is so great.
Or like just like the little, just like, you know, like you mentioned the wine glass thing, but like one of my favorite ones was like how they have that like extended scene where it's just like, you know, Christopher Meloni just like shitting in his Halloween costume, and like it just kind of really doesn't go anywhere. And then like 45 minutes later, whatever in the movie, like he comes back and it just like cuts to Ellie Kemper for a second, and it's just like, this is the guy who shit in his pants, yeah, and then they just move on. Like I love that, just like small little payoff there. It just got me, like a little, just the little dumb things like that really hit me in this movie.
Also, obviously, we mentioned the bar scene, but they have this continuous bit where people are about to leave, and then they're like, "Wait, thanks." And they do it. Paul Rudd and his brother in the movie do it a bunch of times, and that got me too. It's one of those things where there's that rule in comedy that if you do something too much, it gets unfunny, but if you just keep doing it, it will become funny again, and they do that a lot in this movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's the bar scene, like over the course of the whole movie, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, no, but I was very much impressed, like, with, or taken by surprise, more like it, with the shift of the scene style when it shifted to the fight between him and his brother, and I was like, what, now they're on Steadicam? What's going on? What is this? Like, it was just like, just so sudden of a switch, and like kind of like a break in genre as well, like it that one scene, and it kind of turned like into like a Goodwill Hunting, like, you know, it's not your fault kind of like scene, and I was just like, ooh, another, of course, like another like, what is going on kind of thing. But I enjoyed it. I mean, definitely any Max Greenfield I love, and
Yeah, I
stuff like
love
that,
Max
and it was,
Greenfield.
and yeah, Max, and then when he gets into the cab, instead of like, he's like, but for you, brother, I will. And like, I did, yeah, like going back to Paul Rudd and his acting is like, or, you know, like choices in that scene with the cab, like he does this like weird ass face that made me like rewind it. I'm like, what is this face and stuff.
Did
Yeah.
anybody notice? So after the taxi scene, and he's like, "All right, little brother or big brother, let's get our shit together, whatever." And they drive over to the wedding. When Paul Rudd gets out of the taxi, did you notice that it wasn't Max Greenfield anymore in the driver's seat? It was just somebody else.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
swear, I thought the guy had a beard, and I was like, "What the fuck?" Like, I like was staring. I was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what happened?" And then he like barges in later in the wedding, and he's like, "Yes, big brother, let's do whatever, let's do this." And I was like, "Oh, god damn it!"
Yeah, I'm always glad to see Max Greenfield show up and stuff. You know, obviously, I think New Girl deserves to get the kind of like treatment that Friends has gotten, where it just kind of like experiences this renaissance. Like I think we're maybe like 5 or 10 years out from that, where people are going to start appreciating that show in the way that they do Friends now. Because I think New Girl's like, no offense to people like Friends, but New Girl's a much better show. You know, I'm familiar with him since Veronica Mars. Like I'm a really big Veronica Mars fan, and he's great on that. He even shows up on Gilmore Girls for just like a second. He really isn't in a ton of stuff, but so whenever he does show up, like I'm always there for it.
Yeah, so one big thing I wanted to ask everybody, since I think this is one of the big comedies that we've done, and like most of us really enjoyed, but and again, because comedy is very subjective. What is your guys' like go to? Because as I know, Jason, you got a top five, but what is your like go to comedy like that you would put on the top of that list?
Oh gosh, funniest movie of all time? A tough one to put me on the spot for. Let's see.
Or just your go to, like where like you just you're like, man, I kind of want to feel good or something, and you just pop it on. It could even be like a movie that's not necessarily a comedy, where like it's kind of there's comedy in it, but like a genre movie with like comedy included. Same for
I think
for
that if I had to go like for a straight up comedy, it's probably Old School from 2003. That's probably the one that I would return to most.
Yeah, I mean, and you guys, I think, know my answer, which is super bad. Like, that movie just hit at the right exact time for me. I saw it. It's one of those movies where I watched it in absolutely the right circumstances, and it has so many jokes that I crack up every time. I know you're not a big fan of Alan, but like it's still one of my favorite movies, and I also just love movies that are about male friendship. Like, that really hits for me. I feel like there's there I mean there's just me like I think I feel the same way about Bridesmaids from a female friendship point of view, and I really want like movies that just
Mm-hmm.
focus on just kind of like dynamics between like two people of the same gender like forming a really tight bond. So I absolutely will watch Superbad like anytime. I have it practically memorized at this point.
Yeah, like for me, I think Ghostbusters is a go-to comedy for me. Like, and I quote it, like,
Yeah, that's
what was the
right.
one that we just like reviewed that I was saying like oh well no that thing you do isn't too much of a comedy, but that's another one that I could just pop on and watch anytime. But yeah, definitely Ghostbusters. Oh goodness, like an old school, like I grew up with it kind of comedy is what I could watch and pop in and just keep on, you know, till the end of time. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to think of more. But yeah.
Hot Rod's another great one that just popped in my head. Hot Rod and then Bridesmaids, which you mentioned, Derek. I'm on the side of Alan though. I am not a fan of Superbad.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm okay with
comedy
Superbad.
is subjective.
The Mask is another one that I love. Uh huh.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Alan?
Um, it has to be Clerks. I know Clerks isn't like laugh out loud, but like I think like just like you said, you saw Superbad at the right time. For me, Clerks, I was like just getting into like really delving into movies. I just started my job at Disneyland. Like that was my first job. I was like 17. I just turned 17, and I'd been a fan of Kevin Smith movies, but I never got to see Clerks yet. And then finally, one of my first paychecks, I went out and bought it, and I just related so much to it because of like working in customer service that I was like, this is my Bible kind of thing. So like I thought it was funny, and it's also like weirdly comforting. And I think too, I really like the dialogue in Kevin Smith movies and Quentin Tarantino movies as well. Like sometimes the dialogue is just so funny in general. Like in Reservoir Dogs, there's a scene where I think all the guys are in a car, and I think Mr. White is telling a story. Oh no, I think it's Nice Guy Eddie is telling a story, and it's one of the funniest scenes. But it's just so like it's not meant to be like laugh out loud funny. It's just kind of like it feels like you're there, like you're in the car with them, and that's what Clerks kind of does too, where like you can just be hanging out talking about Star Wars with your friends, and you're at work and you're just vibing, like what happened to the people that were destroyed on the Death Star and all that stuff. Like I think it's more like I like to feel like I'm in the dialogue as well. But I think Clerks, yeah, that's like my go-to.
Yeah.
Jane Silent Bob Strikes Back is a good one for me too.
Mhm.
Like just the whole like when Ben Affleck and Matt Damon pop in, them the actors quote unquote themselves, and that whole scene in like Goodwill Hunting 2, and
Next
all
season.
that like yeah, hunting season. And then they how they spike the camera of like, sometimes you have to do you have to do the movies that are to do the movies that are for you. You have to do the movies that are for for other people. Like like a favor for a friend that tells you that that you owe them, and then they spike the camera at Kevin Smith. I fucking love it.
My Kevin Smith movie was always Dogma. Like, I love Dogma.
Yeah, Dogma's really fucking good too. Like that one, I think I had seen Dogma before Clerks, and like I love that whole like kind of religious stuff and like making fun of it and all that. But yeah, like Clerks, though, that's where I was like, all right, I could totally relate to this kind of thing. But Dogma is just that one. I feel is pretty underrated nowadays too. I feel like not a lot of people bring it up, even though it's like his. I think one of his funniest movies too.
Yeah. Well, guess that about wraps it up for us. Just want to say thank you again, Jason, for being on. It's been really a blast to come on and talk about this movie with you. But yeah, like I'd mentioned at the top, Jason does his show Force 5, which I've been on. So go ahead and give that show a listen. And if you want to give my episode, the top high brief encounter movies, a listen. Anything else you wanted to mention, Jason, before we wrap up?
Just for anything else, Force 5, head to force5podcast.com or hit me up on social media at Force5Pod on Twitter and at Force5Podcast on Instagram.
Yeah, and those links will be in the description below for anybody out there who's listening, along with links to our social media are also going to be down there, our Instagram and Twitter and our email if you want to ever email us in and let us know what an underrated movie that you would like to hear us cover. At some point, we always get good fans. We are trying to work through some more of those. But yeah, we also do a couple other things. Ariel, you've got your podcast You've Never Seen. I don't know if you wanted to mention that at all, Ariel.
Yeah, we have December Christmas episode of Elf, like Alan had mentioned before, and yeah, it comes out on the 1st of every month, and it's either me or my guest is introduced to a movie that is considered part of pop culture, but we've never seen it, so it allows us the opportunity to see it and provide our first impressions right after him.
Yep, and so go ahead and give that a listen, give Jason a listen. Check out our socials. We've got a Patreon now, so if you guys are inclined to check that out, we always appreciate that. But we do just appreciate you guys just listening. That means the world to us, honestly. But until next time, thanks everybody for listening. I'll see you in another life.
Bye. Thanks for being amazing.
Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Thanks everybody for listening. I'll see you in another life.
Bye. Thanks for being amazing.
Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Thanks everybody for listening. I'll see you in another life.
Bye. Thanks for being amazing.
Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Thanks everybody for listening. I'll see you in another life.
Bye. Thanks for being amazing.
Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, you can say that again.